The phone rang at 6:47 in the morning. I was sitting on the back porch with my coffee, watching the fog lift off the pond behind the house, the way it does every October in Savannah. My wife used to love that. She'd wrap both hands around her mug and just stand there, not saying a word, like the world owed her that one quiet moment before the day started. I still sit out there for her. 4 years later, I still sit out there. When I saw my daughter's name on the screen, I felt something shift in my chest. She never called before 8. Never. Even as a little girl, she'd sleep until noon if you let her. So when I saw her name at that hour, I knew. Dad. Her voice was tight, controlled in that way. That means someone is working very hard not to fall apart. Dad. Marcus found the folder. I set my coffee down on the armrest. Which folder? I asked, though I already knew. The blue one, in your study. He said he was looking for the insurance papers and he found it, and now he's saying... She stopped. I heard her breathe. He's saying you've been hiding things from us. From me. He wants to sit down tonight. He says he has a friend who's a financial advisor, and he wants to bring him over to go through everything. I looked out at the pond. The fog was almost gone now. Claire, I said quietly, let him come. She went silent for a moment. Dad, are you sure? Because he seems really... Tell him 6 o'clock, I said. I'll make dinner. I hung up and sat there for a long time. Then I went inside, picked up a different phone, and made 2 calls of my own. I want to tell you how we got here, because this didn't start with a blue folder or a phone call on a foggy morning. This started 3 years ago, at my daughter's wedding, when I watched a man in a rented tuxedo smile at me across a reception hall like he'd just won something. My daughter is the kind of woman who fills a room. She always has been. Her mother was the same way. A school teacher from Macon with a laugh that made strangers smile whether they wanted to or not. Claire got that laugh. She got her mother's eyes, too. That particular shade of brown that looks almost gold in the right light. She is, without question, the best thing I ever had a hand in making. She met Marcus at a work conference in Charlotte. He was in real estate, or said he was. Investments, development, opportunities. He had a lot of words for what he did, and they were always different words depending on who was asking. With her colleagues, he was a developer. With my old friends from the firm, he was in private equity. With me, the first time she brought him home for Sunday dinner, he said he was building something. I asked him what he was building. He smiled and said, "The right foundation." I remember my wife's sister, who was visiting from Augusta that weekend, leaned over and whispered to me that he was charming. I told her that was exactly what worried me. My wife, Patricia, she passed from pancreatic cancer 14 months after that first dinner. She never got to see the wedding. She did get to meet Marcus 4 more times before she got too sick for visitors, and after the 3rd visit she took my hand and said to me, very quietly, that she hoped I was watching. I told her I was watching. She said, "No, Leonard, I mean really watching." I understood what she meant. Patricia could read people the way some folks read weather. Not from anything they said, but from the small things. The way Marcus always angled toward whatever subject money lived inside. The way he'd ask about the house, the property, the land behind it. Always casual, always folded inside some other question, but always there. The way he listened differently when numbers came up. His eyes would go just slightly still, like a dog that's heard something in the grass. I watched. I kept watching after she was gone. I had spent 31 years as a structural engineer. I understand load-bearing systems. I understand what happens when you build on the wrong foundation and then pile weight on top of it. I had also, quietly and carefully, spent the 2 years before Patricia died, making sure that everything we had built together was structured in a way that would outlast whatever came at it. The house was in a trust. Had been since 2019. The investment accounts were titled correctly. Beneficiaries updated. All of it reviewed by my attorney, a woman named Rosalind who has been practicing estate law in Savannah for 30 years and who Patricia liked enormously. The rental property over in Tybee Island. Same trust. The savings accounts, the retirement funds, all of it arranged the way a careful man arranges things when he knows the weather is coming and he wants the roof to hold. The blue folder Marcus found in my study contained none of that. The blue folder contained property tax statements from 2018, an old car insurance policy that had expired, and a copy of a home equity line of credit that I had paid off in full 7 years ago. It was, in other words, a folder full of nothing. I had not hidden it. I had simply never thrown it away. But Marcus didn't know that, and that was useful. Because what Marcus thought was in that folder, what he had apparently convinced himself existed, was a different picture of my finances altogether. He had done his research, I'll give him that. He knew roughly what the house appraised for. He'd found the parcel records for the Tybee property online. He'd put together a number in his head, a very large number, and he had spent 3 years slowly, patiently trying to find a path to it. I had spent 3 years watching him build that path and making sure every door it led to was already locked. He arrived at 6 o'clock with a man he introduced as a financial advisor named Davis. Davis had a briefcase and the kind of handshake that tries too hard. I shook it anyway, offered them both sweet tea, and put a pot roast on the table like it was any other family dinner. Claire sat across from me and looked like she was waiting for something to explode. Marcus ate well. I noticed that about him. He always ate well. Whatever else was happening, he complimented the pot roast. He asked about the garden. He was patient. I respected the patience, even as I saw through every inch of it. After dinner, when Davis had opened his briefcase and arranged some papers on my kitchen table, Marcus leaned forward with that smile and said, "Leonard, we just want to make sure everything is organized, for Claire's sake, for the future." "Of course," I said, "because she is your only heir," he continued. "And we feel like, as her husband, I should have a clear picture of what the family's financial situation looks like." I looked at my daughter. She was looking at the table. "Marcus," I said, "what exactly is it you are hoping to find a clear picture of?" He opened his hands in that way people do when they're performing reasonableness. "The properties. The accounts. We found the folder, and it raised some questions, that's all. Davis can help us understand the structure, make sure nothing is—" He paused, searching for the word exposed. "Exposed," I repeated. "Unprotected," Davis offered. "From a planning standpoint." I nodded slowly. Then I said, "Davis, are you a licensed financial advisor in the state of Georgia?" A small hesitation, just a small one. "I work in consulting." "What firm?" Another pause. "I'm independent." I looked at Marcus. "So your financial advisor is an independent consultant who came to my home at dinner time to help you understand my personal finances." Claire's head came up. Marcus kept the smile, but something behind it had shifted. "We're just trying to look out for the family, Leonard." "I know what you're trying to do," I said. And then I stood up, walked to the kitchen drawer and took out a different folder. This one was manila. Thick. "I had a meeting this morning," I said, setting it on the table, "with Rosalind Chambers. She's been my estate attorney for 12 years. She put together a summary of the current structure for me. I thought, since we were going to be having this conversation, I should have it ready." I watched Marcus's eyes go to the folder. "Everything I own," I said. "The house, the Tybee property, the investment accounts, all of it, has been held in a revocable living trust since December of 2019. The trust was written specifically to protect those assets. Claire is named as the beneficiary. Her husband is not. I paused. You're not, Marcus. I want to say that clearly, so there's no confusion later. The kitchen was very quiet. The trust also contains specific language. Rosalind's language, not mine, that addresses what happens in the event of Claire's divorce. I looked at my daughter when I said that. Not at him. At her. It was not written because I expected that. It was written because her mother asked me to write it. Claire made a sound that wasn't quite a word. Your mother asked me 2 months before she died, I said, to make sure you would always have something that was yours, that nobody could take from you. Not bad luck, not bad choices, not someone else's ambition. I slid the manila folder across the table toward her. This is what that looks like. Marcus sat very still. Davis had quietly stopped pretending to take notes. There's nothing in this house that belongs to you, I said to Marcus. My voice was even. I was not angry. I want you to understand that. I had been angry 2 years ago, privately, when I'd first understood what he was. I had worked through that anger, the way you work through weather. You let it come, you let it pass, and then you do what needs to be done. There's nothing here that you can reach, nothing that any advisor of yours can reorganize or restructure or help you access. The foundation was poured before you walked through the door. He stood up. The smile was completely gone now, and what was underneath it was something smaller and uglier, like a room you didn't want to see. You've been doing this since the beginning, he said, treating me like I was. I've been watching you since the beginning, I said. There's a difference. He looked at Claire. I think he expected her to say something. She didn't. She was reading the summary in the manila folder, slowly, and her face had gone somewhere I couldn't quite read. Claire, he said. She looked up. How long? She asked him. Not me, him. He didn't answer. How long have you been trying to find out what my father has? She set the folder down on the table. Her voice was very calm, which, if you know my daughter, is the most dangerous version of her voice. The questions about the house, the asking his neighbors about the Tybee property, the just curious conversations about what things would sell for. How long? I was looking out for us. Don't, she said. Davis picked up his briefcase. Marcus stood there for another moment, and I think he was deciding whether there was a version of this he could still win. He was a man who had spent a lot of his life deciding which version of the room he was standing in. He could still win. But there was no version of this room. I had taken the time to make sure of that. He left. Davis left. I heard the front door close. Claire sat at my kitchen table for a long time without speaking. I poured her a glass of sweet tea and sat across from her, and we didn't talk. And outside the kitchen window the October dark had come down over the yard, and the lights on the pond looked like small floating stars. Finally she said, I feel so stupid. Don't, I said. Dad, 3 years. I didn't see it. Your mother didn't see it in your grandfather for 4 years, I said, and your grandmother was one of the sharpest women I ever knew. Love makes a specific kind of blind spot. It's not stupidity. It's the cost of trusting someone. She looked at the folder. You did all of this before I needed to, I said. Yes. Mom asked you to. She did. Claire was quiet for a moment. Then, is there really a letter? You mentioned... She left. I got up and went to my study. On the top shelf, behind the engineering manuals, there was a small cedar box that Patricia had bought years ago at a craft fair in Hilton Head. She said she liked the smell of it. Inside was a sealed envelope with my daughter's name on it, in her mother's handwriting. Patricia had pressed it into my hands one afternoon in the hospital and said, "Not until she needs it." I carried it back to the kitchen and set it in front of Claire. She looked at it for a long time. The handwriting had faded a little, but Claire pressed her fingers against the letters of her name like she was reading them by touch. "When did she write this?" she whispered. "About 3 weeks before she died," I said. "She made me promise I'd know when the time was right." Claire opened the envelope carefully. I poured myself more coffee and looked out at the pond and gave her the privacy of it. I don't know everything the letter said. I never read it. That was not mine to read. But I watched my daughter's face as she did, and I saw the moment it broke open, and I saw the moment it came back together again. And what came back together was something straighter and steadier than what had been there before. When she set the letter down, her eyes were wet, but her chin was level. "She knew," Claire said. "She suspected," I said. "She wanted to protect you. That's different from knowing." "She said." Claire stopped. "Touch the paper." "She said you would take care of everything." "She said you always do." I looked at my hands around the coffee mug. 31 years of building things, of calculating load and stress and tolerance, of asking how much weight a structure could carry before it failed. Patricia had understood that about me in a way I don't think I ever fully understood about myself. She knew I built things to last. She knew that when I loved something, I reinforced it. "I tried," I said. Claire folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. She held it against her chest for a moment, like something small and warm. Then she looked at me. "What do I do now?" she asked. "Whatever you want," I said. "That's the point. That's always been the point." She called an attorney the following week. Not for the money. There was nothing to fight over on that front, as Marcus had learned, and I suspect he did not enjoy learning it. She called an attorney because she had decided what she wanted, and she wanted it to be clean and documented and final. She is her mother's daughter in that way. She does not leave things unresolved. She stayed with me for 2 weeks while she sorted through the practicalities. We ate dinner together every night. We sat on the back porch in the mornings and watched the fog come off the pond. She wrapped her hands around her coffee mug the exact same way her mother used to. And I didn't say anything about it. But I noticed, and it did something to my chest that I've decided is not grief exactly. Or not only grief, it's closer to gratitude, the kind that hurts because of how much it's made of. One morning, she asked me how I had known, not just about Marcus, about all of it. How I had known to do everything when I did it. I thought about that for a while before I answered. "Your mother had a phrase she used," I said. "When something felt wrong, she'd say, 'Leonard, the weather's changing.' She didn't mean literally. She meant pay attention. Something's shifting. Don't wait until the storm is already there to check whether the roof is solid." Claire nodded slowly. "The weather changed," I said. "The first night Marcus sat at my dinner table and asked me 4 different questions about the house in 45 minutes. I paused. I started checking the roof the next morning. She laughed at that, a real laugh, the kind that sounds like her mother. It came out sudden and surprised both of us. And then she laughed again because of that. And I found myself smiling into my coffee in the cold October air. "You could have told me," she said, after the laughter had settled. "Yes," I said, "but you didn't. If I had told you what I suspected, you would have had to choose between me and him before you were ready to choose," I said. "That's not a choice I was willing to force on you, so I made sure that whatever you chose, you'd be protected either way." I looked at her. "I wasn't right about everything in my life, Claire. But I was right about love. Real love doesn't force the hand. It just makes sure the ground is solid." She was quiet for a long moment, looking out at the water. "She was lucky," she finally said. "Mom, to have you." "I was the lucky one," I said. "Don't let anyone tell you different." The fog was all the way gone by then. The sun had come fully up over the tree line, and the pond had gone from silver to blue. And somewhere in the yard behind us, a bird was making a lot of noise about the morning. The world was doing what it always does, moving forward, indifferent to what you've just come through, requiring you to come with it. I've been thinking lately about what I want to leave behind. Not in the legal sense. Rosalind has that in order, has had it in order for years. I mean in the other sense. The kind of inheritance that doesn't go in a trust document. The kind that's passed in kitchens and on back porches and in cedar boxes with faded handwriting on the envelope. Patricia left Claire a letter. I don't know every word in it, but I know the shape of what it was. It was a mother saying, "I saw this coming, and I made sure you'd be all right, and I love you past the point where I can be there to tell you so. I know that because it's exactly what I would have written. The house will go to my daughter one day, the Tybee property, the accounts, all of it, structured and protected the way a careful man structures things. But the part that matters, the part I think about when I sit on this porch in the mornings, is smaller than any of that. It's the knowledge I'm trying to hand her, piece by piece, in the time we have, that love is not blind if you're paying attention. That preparation is its own form of devotion. That the most important thing you can build for the people you love is not wealth, it's stability. A floor that holds. Walls that don't shift. A structure they can stand inside of when the weather turns. My wife knew that before I did. She was always a little ahead of me that way. The bird in the yard is still carrying on. Claire has gone inside to refill her coffee. I am sitting here in the October sun with my empty mug, watching the light move across the water, doing the thing my wife loved to do, taking one quiet moment before the day requires something of me. I think she'd be glad to know I learned how to do that. I think she'd be glad about a lot of things. I know I am.